What's going on, guys? It's Danny from Slow Restoration, and as you can see, we have the Cadillac Escalade back up on the lift. We're picking away at the little problems that these things typically have, and as you can see here, we still have a small oil leak. This one seems to be coming from the oil pan itself. So if you can look up inside there, you can see all along the oil pan rail is wet. So kind of another common issue with these, and we're going to tackle that today. It looks more difficult than it actually is, and you can do it a couple different ways, but the easiest way I've found, obviously first step is going to be draining the oil, which we did. We got rid of the oil filter too, so we'll be doing the oil change with filter same time. If you look here, there's plenty of room, except for that front differential is kind of tight against the pan. So this differential, it sounds kind of drastic, but we're just going to remove it. You can do it pretty quickly. You have two bolts here, one there, one up front there, and one in the back right there. With those bolts out, you have 6 bolts on each axle. You have a vent line right there, and the only thing left is actually the drive shaft. So this has a little bit of play in it. Someone's already replaced it, but for some reason it still has some play in it. So we're going to go ahead and put a new U-joint in while we have that apart. The other thing we'll do after we get the differential out is remove this cross member here. And then after that's done, the oil pan you can unbolt and actually literally drop it straight down. It's a 15 millimeter for these axle bolts. They pop right out. 6 of them on each side. As you can see, the axle came right loose. Now chances are this has been apart before because this thing's got a bunch of miles on it. But anyway, I always like to mark the axle with the stub shaft and just put it back the way it was. Sometimes it eliminates vibrations unnecessarily, but as you can see, that axle is out of the way now, and we'll keep moving on with it. 11 millimeter wrench takes the U-joint straps off, so we got that pulled out of the way. And over here we got these two. There's a nut and washer here and one here. Now we're actually starting to get loose. We did get our vent line pulled off. Now we have 2 more bolts, one right here and one up here, and this whole differential should come out. They're not terribly heavy. This one being all-wheel drive's all aluminum, and it's got the smaller, I'm used to working on the HD trucks. They have the larger differential up front, but we should be able to just grab a hold of that and twist it, and it should come out of there. Worst case, on HD trucks, you do have to disconnect the steering here, but we're going to give it a shot. Just turning the wheels allows that bar to come forward a little bit, and we're going to see if we can't slip this out without disconnecting the steering first. So let's get these 2 other bolts popped out, and we'll see if we can give that a spin and slip that out. With those 2 bolts out, everything's unhooked now, and as you can see, we're dropping down. We did have to unhook the steering. We just didn't have enough room to roll it through. But if you pop the steering center link off of the pitman arm and put the center link in front of the pitman arm and turn everything to the driver's side, you have enough to pull this mount down through. So pretty much all we have to do now is roll this thing, and it'll come right out. We're still in our mount here, the bolt's out, but that's what's kind of holding us up right now. But as we twist this, this mount will come down through here, and you can just kind of roll and pull that whole differential right out of the way. And there we go. That, just like I said, kind of rolls right out of there, and it's got some weight to it, so definitely be careful. I was able to lift it out of there, so it is able to be done with one man, but I also had the help of a pole jack to steady everything, so just be careful. It's probably preferred to get an extra hand or 2 on it. So next thing we need to do is we'll remove this cross member right here, get it out of our way, and then we'll take the bolts out of the pan. There's a couple of wire clips and stuff like that. Get all that undone. There is a wire trough up front here. One 10mm bolt in one side, and then it kind of slips over and pops out of the pan, and you just kind of let it dangle there. So we'll get all the bolts out, get the pan dropped. Also, we do have the oil cooler lines. Get some light here. There we go. Oil cooler lines bolt to the side of the pan. So we'll unbolt those also. We got our drain pan back under it to catch that oil. Let's go ahead and do that and let that drain until we get the rest of the bolts and stuff out here. All right, now we do have to worry about lining the pan back up when we put it back on. But if you think about it, the oil pan right now is pulled back with this bolt, and I already took that bolt out against the transmission bell housing. So it pulls straight back, and that aligns it. So when we put this back up, we'll snug these bolts up, and then we'll tighten these down. That'll pull it back and square the pan up, and then we'll be good to torque the rest of the bolts down. But let's keep working on this and get the pan off. As you can see, we got the pan off. That all came off nice and clean. Now we just have a bunch of cleaning to do. So we'll clean the block surfaces off. One other thing you're gonna wanna do, you got the option, you're here. This oil pump pickup tube attaches right here. I already have the bolt out. It's got, where is it? One tab here on the windage tray bolts. So there's 13mm, and a 10 bolt attaches to the oil pump itself. Turn the light back on, and there's an O-ring there. We'll run over here real quick, and we're also doing that U-joint. Here's the O-ring. So sometimes that does fail on these. Obviously, we're right there now. It'll take 5 minutes to replace it. If this fails later, you have to do this job all over again. So this was, I think it was less than $2. So definitely pick this up along with your oil pan gasket and replace it while you're there. Why not? With that oil pump pickup off, here is the O-ring. We'll just simply pull it off, and as you can see there, I might have ripped that, taken it off, but you can see it's really flattened out. And if you compare it to the new one, it's dry and a lot harder. The new one's a lot more pliable. So that's what happens. All this stuff's rubber products. Eventually it does dry out even though it's in oil. So like I said, definitely, if at all possible, go ahead and do that while you have the pan off. And we'll lubricate that O-ring and put that back on. 2 13mm nuts on there, and that 10mm bolt in the front that goes into the oil pump. With that secure and replaced, we'll go ahead and clean up the block surface and make sure everything's good. We do have to drill the original oil pan gasket. We do have to clean that also, but it is pop riveted onto the oil pan. So in order to get that off, there's a pop rivet right here and one right here. We'll drill that, and you don't need to rivet the new pan gasket on. The bolts will hold it in place and center it. No issues there. We got our drill, and if you hold the oil pan down at an angle, you can drill that without really any shavings going into the pan. We got one tiny one in there. Just pay attention as you're drilling, and then clean it up as you're done. And with the second one drilled, the pan gasket will come right off, and we'll hold this over the trash can because it's pretty nasty. But as you can see, there is no, the rubber O-ring is just completely smashed flat on this one. So that's why it was leaking so bad. Again, rubber products over time will deteriorate, and you just gotta replace them. Kind of the same way as you clean this, you can take a razor blade, lean the pan over, and all that stuff will fall right down and out of the pan as you're cleaning up. It's just kind of grime. There's really no sealer on here because it's a steel shim with the rubber embossed. I can't even talk. It's a steel shim gasket with rubber embossed sealing ring. So we'll get this pan cleaned up. We'll knock down the rest of those rivets and get it ready to start putting back together. We've got that all cleaned up. Our new pan gasket laid down on there. We'll take a couple bolts and just run them up through, and that'll keep it in place. There's a little extra material here helps hold those bolts in place, so it doesn't move around. We will put right here, all four corners, there's these little squares, and that's where the front cover attaches to the block and the rear cover attaches to the block. So we'll put a little bit of extra sealer. I use the Permatex Ultra Black. You can use whatever your favorite is, and just a little dab on each corner helps seal up where the two covers meet together. We got the pan put back on there. As you can see, all the bolts are started. The center ones are snugged up just to suck the pan up against the block. Not tight, but snug. We got our bolts in the back here, so we'll just again snug these just enough that the pan makes contact with the transmission bell housing, and then we'll go ahead. Oil pan's all finished up, everything's torqued down, new oil filters on. Now let's get the differential back up in. There, we got it all back together, everything's tightened up. The only thing we have left to do is drop it down and actually put oil in it. We'll start it up, let it run, let it get up temperature, check for leaks. Everything's plugged back in. Don't forget your sensor over here, for your oil level sensor. We did get that new U-joint in. We went ahead and greased that also. And yeah, it's looking good. This is a very common issue with LS motors that have high miles. This has got well over 200,000. I forget exactly how many it does have, and honestly, I don't care. It is an LQ9, so it's worth keeping around. And we'll just keep fixing stuff as it goes wrong. And like I said, it's probably never really had any major maintenance stuff go or happen to it, get done to it rather. And yeah, we got our oil in, all topped off. We're gonna go ahead and fire it up and we'll just peek underneath and look for leaks. Now don't be alarmed if it takes a second to build oil pressure, because we did have the pan off and the pickup tube off. So there it goes, already built pressure. Since we're still on the lift, we'll just go ahead and raise it back up. Check it out. Everything under here looks nice. I don't see any drips anywhere. Everything sounds normal. I think we're good to go. I'll take it for a test drive. Hopefully that I had a slight noise in the front end. Hopefully it was that U-joint. It had a little bit of play in it, and it was tight, so regardless, it needed replaced, but we'll know as soon as we take it for a test drive. There we have it, guys. The LQ9 sounding really good. Oil pressure is really good. It was before, but with that new O-ring, we're gonna make sure it stays good for a while. It does have 228,000 on it, so it was time. Thanks for tuning in. Have a good day.